This is just going to be a quick follow-up video to the previous one that I just released. And it's to give a few ideas of what I plan to do going forward with measuring the light intensity and trying to analyze it that way. Now, the thing is, if you look at the light intensity curve, as I stated in the previous video, some of these areas are probably related to due to atmospheric absorption, and some of these other ranges might also be affected by atmospheric scattering. And the trick is going to be to figure out what role each one plays throughout the course of the day, because I would suspect that there is going to be a certain level of blue scattering regardless of how far the sun is away from you. And the other thing too is moisture in the air probably does not go 100 kilometers in the air. It's probably only around 5 or 10 kilometers, for example. So as the moisture stays closer to the ground, you might find that part of the values that you're seeing here are probably related more to the light being absorbed by clouds, by the moisture in the air, etc., by the pollutants in the atmosphere. And then as you get near the very top, it might only be a minute amount of absorption, but the first molecule that the ray of light hits is probably enough to start to scatter those specific wavelengths. So my guess is the wavelength scattering is probably going to occur regardless of how far or how close the sun is from you. But the absorption in the atmosphere is probably only going to occur to a greater extent in one area or the other based on the angle. And that's kind of what I suspect. So the whole point of this is to try to figure out what certain frequencies of light get absorbed or reflected, refracted, or basically just don't make it to you. And I'm trying to figure out the best ways that I can measure that on the cheap. So one thing that I thought of was to use my DSLR in raw format mode and to ignore what the camera interprets the colors to be and just use the camera's native individual red, green, and blue filters to gauge the intensities for each of those color spectrums. Now, there's a couple of problems that I can think of right off the hop. One of them is that those filters probably are a frequency band pass or a frequency notch pass. So if you have a full spectrum of light coming towards the sensor and the light is absorbing most of a specific frequency and the camera happens to filter only for that color, it might appear more black than something that's slightly whiter. And then of course you get into the notion of what happens if you've got a light frequency that is genuinely more orange than it is a combination of red and green. So the light sensor of the camera may have as much to play with it as the actual readings that are derived from it. Another thought I had, and I'm going to be putting out another video which will explain why I'm putting the video out, but I was looking to see if somebody sold a prism, and I don't really care if it's made out of glass or plastic or whatever. I just want something that will, for all intents and purposes, produce a rainbow that you can then project onto a piece of paper, for example. So if the light source comes in and it gets uh, uh, split by the prism, and then you have this rainbow. Then if you create the appropriate rig, you could maybe photograph the rainbow throughout the day, and then you can then analyze it in the computer afterwards by converting it back to black and white and doing all kinds of other stuff. But even then, you may end up being you may end up facing the same limitations than just simply using the camera itself to derive the individual component colors. But at least if I have the prism, then I could also, as a backup, use the overall length of I could use the overall length of the rainbow that's cast, so that as more and more blue light is scattered, theoretically the rainbow itself should get shorter and shorter and then slowly creep into the greens and further into the reds at sunrise and at sunset. So that's another possibility. So unfortunately, I was thinking about this earlier and I had it a few minutes ago, and now that is lost again. But anyways, I'm sure that this entire series is not going to be dead anytime soon. Well, there you have it. I just wanted this to be a quick follow-up video. You know what to do. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again in the next one soon enough. Bye for now.